Welcome to Inspired Learning, the Path of Exile podcast with Badger and Yoji. My name is Badger.
I'm Yoji.
And we are joined by our first returning guest, 2 times guest, BigDucks. BigDucks, thank you so much for coming. How you doing?
Yeah, man, of course. Glad to be here. I'm doing all right. Besides, of course, the headhunter that we poofed and the headhunter that we corrupted today. Besides that, we're doing pretty good. At least it's content. But what can you do?
Yeah, you came, just for those listening later, you came straight from a stream where you just destroyed a headhunter in the corruption chamber. I'm sure your chat enjoyed it, but I'm not sure if you did. But
it was fun.
All
for the memes.
Right? Yeah.
Those were like naturally found headhunters, right?
They were both naturally dropped headhunters, yes. The first one was from Ritual, and the second one was from just a natural drop in in an influence in what's it called? In the Nemesis, the infused Nemesis map. So yeah.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah. I've never had a natural headhunter drop. I think I've only ever really gone for headhunter twice via Ancient Orbs, and I've just got 2. But yeah, impressive.
2 out of 2, that's pretty good. I've bought
true. Yeah.
That worked pretty well as well.
Yeah, buying it sometimes works as well, doesn't it? Yeah, using the currency to purchase. Yeah,
I did actually farm a Doctor set back in whatever that was league. I think Prophecy League, because that was like the divination card boxes back then. Gave cards from the zone, and you did good old Springs map was pretty good back then.
Oh god, I remember that map.
Back in my day and stuff.
Springs was one of the original meme maps, dude. That was the one that killed Crip and all of his boys on that the first big corpse exploded, the corpse of the boss.
Yeah,
that was that.
Look, we were going to talk about Harvest, but now we're just going to talk about PoE nostalgia. So sorry, guys.
Yeah. Back when the game was still good.
Oh, all right. Yeah. So
it already begins.
It already begins. Yeah, we are here to talk about Harvest. Let's talk about Harvest. Really. You know, there's a lot that I guess we'll cover. We'll try and cover everything about, you know, everything that's happened and some stuff that's happened after this big announcement. But what do you reckon is the best way to go about this? Should we actually just read the first little bit about or some of the actual news itself for those who might not be up to date? I'm pretty sure everyone listening is probably up to date with these changes. Yeah. I don't know.
But you want to set if you haven't read the thing, like, what are you doing here?
Yeah, true. Let's just outline it, right? So Grinding Gear Games around about, it was probably it was on the weekend, right? Start of the weekend, 4 or 5 days ago.
It's been almost a week now.
Almost a week, yeah. So they released a manifesto about changes to Harvest. More specifically, they released some information about changes, removing certain things like targeted annuls and certain crafting on influenced-based items. And then increasing the frequency of finding a harvest, but reducing the amount of crafts you do get per harvest, right? So there was a bit in there. I think a lot of the outcry that has happened, I'm sure you guys would both agree, a lot of it is for the content of what was actually in there of the nerfs, but most of it was from how things were worded and how things were brought across to us, which I'm sure that we'll delve into pretty soon. But I actually just want to go around and just hear, I guess, kind of blanket opinions on your guys' stance on these changes coming through. So BigDucks, being the guest, let's start with you.
So I have, chat and I have literally just been like, the first probably 3 streaming days, we literally just got in on it for the entire stream and just discussed and talked. And my finalized opinion is that I do believe that Harvest needed some kind of nerf. I do believe that it did need some kind of nerf. I think the nerfs that they did were kind of just a slap in the face. And the way that they went about communicating, of course, like you said before, where they addressed that there was a problem, and then instead of fixing that problem, they just tried to make Harvest worse so that it wasn't a problem. And I didn't really like that, but, you know.
Yeah, I can see that. I think the thing that they decided to, is like one thing that you just mentioned, like especially weird to me, that it decided to address the whole TFT Discord server trading issue, mentioned it as an issue, and then never mentioned any part solution to it. They basically said, this is a problem. Crickets.
Yeah.
And that was that. Everyone's like, so what's your solution to this? Just make Harvest not worth engaging with anymore? Seems a bit weird. Like, if you make Harvest bad enough, it wouldn't be worth trading crafts over Discord anymore, right? I think maybe that was the intention, but they didn't nerf Harvest that crazily, so it seems a bit weird.
Yeah. It is a bit strange. I'm kind of on the same line with Ducks here as well. Like as a person who does play the game a lot, and that's something that I do have to clarify straight away, and I'm always clarifying. Like when I talk about my opinion, I mean it as my opinion as a person who plays the game a lot, right? And how I interact with Harvest. I very much experienced Harvest as something that was very, very powerful, too powerful for what I thought the game should be. That being said, the nerfs that are proposed are a bit of a slap in the face, as Ducks put it. They're very heavy-handed, and it's kind of a blanket nerf, not really to the problem, or whatever you might think the problem is. As Yoji was saying as well, that like they addressed some certain things with trading and TFT, but nothing actually came through with all of that. So it's, an interesting spot here where I'm like, look. It was, nerfs were warranted, but I don't know what to make of what actually came through.
Yeah. The problem that I see with it at the core is that it feels like this is something that GGG does quite a lot. They very rarely. I'm honestly genuinely surprised we ever got Harvest back. I really genuinely am. I thought when Harvest was gone that it was going to be gone and we'd never touch it. And then they told us, well, Harvest is going to come back, but in a vastly different form than you remember. And I don't know about you guys, but it doesn't really feel like it changed very much. It feels like it actually, I know this seems strange, but with the openness of like availability to Harvest, I think it got stronger than it was originally in Harvest was. So first off, I'm just surprised that it ever came back in the first place. That's not even mentioning like the fact that I don't think that these changes are actually going to impact, and this is the point that everyone is. This is the point that started all the conversation. I don't think the changes are going to impact someone who knows what they're doing. They're not going to impact these people that make 100 exalts per the league. They're not going to be changed. They're still going to get their good items. They're still going to have their good stuff. But everyone else is going to feel the changes, right? They're going to feel the difference, whether it be through trade prices going up or whether it be through not being able to interact with Harvest the way that they want.
I actually think that for a lot of people, it doesn't matter. I'm not talking about the people who don't get past Brutus or like. Basically, we can. All of this is this discussion. If we manage like an average player or whatever, we can cut out all the population in PoE that doesn't make it to maps because half is only maps. So we're only talking about the average player in maps, basically, because everyone else is not affected. By definition. I think personally, I wouldn't be that affected by the Harvest changes. Honestly, I think if you don't trade, it's a pretty big difference because like the economy shifting, prices changing, exalt ratios, all that doesn't affect me. So I think honestly, like for all of the items I crafted this league, there's maybe like 2 or 3 that I think there's just one that I couldn't have made the way I made it. And that was just because I slammed a live mod on an item that had influence, and you can't do that anymore. But I could still do Slam Influence. Would I have actually had the same odds? I just decided to save my Slam Influence because that's rare. That's really all I did. And I think if you only play like a few hours a day on average, maybe like 8-10 hours a week early in the league, and then maybe a bit later, less later, you're probably largely unaffected by this. Maybe there's like 1 or 2 items where you can like put all your crafts in per league, where you like really go ham that you couldn't have made. But I don't think otherwise, unless you're playing like super Omega efficient, like going super ham. But if you're just like casually playing, I don't think you're affected. In SSF, that is.
Yeah.
I think the problem comes into is that like at least for me, right? What I originally tried to do, what I do with my content, I've said it a bunch of times. I target the slightly above average player, and I'm once again what Yoji said is, I think, a good talk, because honestly, this whole like average player term, it's arguing semantics at some point. I genuinely am starting, really the more that I have gone through all of this arguing and all of this talking with people, the term average player has completely lost its meaning to me. It means literally nothing. I don't even care about the term anymore. I don't like it. So it's like the only people affected by harvest, like Yoji said, is
Yoji's triplet brother
is people who interacted with it in some way, meaning it needed to be in maps, and people who traded those harvest created items, right? I think the point where it's going to change is now a lot of these like top tier items, as people want to call them. I don't really think they're top tier, but explodey chests, things in that realm, although they are still going to be able to be created, it's not as straightforward anymore. It's like it's gonna start moving back towards that like benefit of knowledge kind of thing. And I know that I'm already going to make a video. I'm already planning on making a video about how to still get explodey chests, because there is still a way. People have talked about it. Unless GGG changes something else, which they might. You don't know what else is gonna happen. They might nerf it even harder. Who knows? But I see you're wanting to say something better.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's an interesting point. Like you said, you know, that we don't know yet. They might even nerf it even harder and all that kind of stuff as well. But on the flip side, there's something really interesting here that we do have to keep remembering, and something that I just keep, you know, telling my chat and my community and everything like that is what we've seen right here is a very small piece of the pie, so to say, in terms of what is coming in 3.14, right? There's a lot that, you know, this is...
Can I interject right now? Because if that is the case, wouldn't it be like super bad to open with this?
No, actually.
Or is it like basically they kind of want to get this out, wait it out, and then fill it with...
Get this out of the way. Get this out of the way. Let people... put it this way. What if they released the information about 3.14, right? And had the harvest stuff there as well. What are people going to focus on? That harvest stuff, 100%. The hype is kind of gone from the league.
Depends on if the hype is good, right?
Well,
but
yeah.
I think a 3.13 nobody would have really
cared. That's actually a big point, but that's because we didn't experience harvest comeback. Anyway, that's another topic of like, I think the biggest mistake here was bringing, I think Ducks kind of mentioned on it, but bringing harvest back in 3.13 in its full was the worst mistake. That was where the problem is. Where the problem originated.
In my opinion, it needed a lot more time, because we can talk about this later if you want, but regardless of how strong harvest is, I don't think interacting with harvest is fun. I think it's one of the least fun mechanics to actually physically interact with in the entire game. I
do agree.
I just feel like I get sucked into this black hole void of time every time I enter the garden, and it's just like I'll be sitting there with chat, and we'll be finished with the harvest, and it'll be 30 minutes later, and I'll be like, "What were we doing, chat? I don't remember what we were doing before this harvest." And they'll literally have to remind me what we were doing, because there was so much time spent in it.
Yeah, we talked about that before. It's kind of like takes you out of your flow of mapping and playing so much, and also the fights are not that interesting, and the crafting
very
is
unoriginal.
The crafting is actually pretty interesting in the sense that you really have to like focus and like decide and see what you get and like make decisions. But that's why I think it takes you out so much. The crafting itself is probably more interesting than the alternative method that we have, which is mostly slam something on your item, be it a fossil, an essence, a chaos orb, whatever, and pray. That's like the other option that we have, aside from like some meta crafting that you can do, of course.
Yeah, it's something that I actually like. I don't usually address things directly in chat, but Captain Lance, a very good content creator, by the way, you should go check him out. Actually, just asked something very important in chat. You know, we think it got nerfed too hard, but then think it shouldn't have been added back to the game. Like, we've kind of expressed those two opinions quite close to each other here, right? So I guess I just want to quickly backtrack and say, both of those things are correct in a certain sense, in my opinion. I don't think it should have been, not added back. Okay, we didn't say added back, right? But like, it should have been added in maybe a more nerf state, right? It's kind of like, don't give someone something so kind of enticing or elevate their gameplay experience or their crafting experience and then just kind of like take it away right after, right? I think that's a lot of what's happening as well, is people have just finally experienced, people who have never crafted before have been given a little bit more of an in to high-end crafting, whatever that means for you, whatever it does. And then some of that power is being taken away. Not all of it, but some of it is, right? So yeah, I guess I'm just trying to get across that, not necessarily everything I think about it.
Just to clarify point, just to clarify point on what Captain Lance said, because I know Badger said his opinion. I'm not fully on board with exactly what you said, Captain Lance. I don't feel exactly that way. I don't necessarily feel like it got nerfed too hard. That's not the point that I was trying to make. I said that the nerfs were just kind of a slap in the face. I don't think the nerfs actually fix any of the problems, right? The nerfs are whatever. I mean, it's still going to be powerful. Anybody that thinks that Harvest isn't going to be powerful in relation to the rest of the game is kidding themselves. It's still going to be extremely powerful. However, the nerfs don't fix anything. And as Badger said before, just clarifying once again, I am surprised that they added it back into the game in its form. I didn't say that they shouldn't add it back into the game in its current form. They said they were going to massively change it, and then they didn't actually change it. I think it should have came back looking something like Delve is what chat actually came to, is that if it's going to be a style of play, make it another alternative, because it's very obvious they can't figure out a way to make it work with the map flow, right? Make it another style of play instead, is what chat and I finally, that was the best idea that chat has given me so far, that I kind of like the idea of, but that's my stance on that, Lance.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the side that removing Harvest from maps and mapping flow definitely makes sense, in the sense that you either want to map or you want to craft. You don't want to be forced to interrupt mapping with crafting. At least I don't want to. If I want to blast maps and destroy like enemies, grind XP, whatever, farm specific divination cards, I don't want to stop and like craft for half an hour. I don't think anyone wants that. Also, the whole garden farming, killing and looting part is not that interesting. Just activate a tiny bunch of mobs, kill them, woo, cool. That might as well not be there as well, in my opinion. And as far as the whole add it back and nerf it and whatever type of deal goes, I see that it's a problem in Trade League. Like, it is like how it is engaged with in Trade League, and also like in SSF to the extent that people just will spam Hayward Hamlet over and over with Zana speedrun atolls. That's not very engaging farming strategy overall. Just like run through the map as fast as possible. If you see a harvest, go do it, and that's not a cool way to farm it. The way they added it back, I can definitely agree on that, is not very cool. That was not very fun. I said I want the crafts back and I don't care about the garden. Now we have like a half-assed garden, which I still don't care about, still not fun. I want some of the crafts, maybe not even all of the crafts. And maybe honestly think the nerfs are not super horrible. Like as in what they did, but as you said, they don't address the problem. But I think adding the crafts to something else maybe would have been more interesting than just putting them all into one mechanic that you now can, in a super boring gameplay loop, farm over and over. I think that is my main issue with that.
What do you two feel about, well, it kind of ties into what we're saying here, especially jumping into a garden and just losing your way in that garden because there's so many crafts in there. The whole proposed changes to increasing the overall discoverability of the garden and very much reducing the actual crafts that you do get in that garden. Do you think that's going to solve any of those issues that people have, or certain people have, or anything like that? Is it going to feel any better to map and then just do garden a little bit quicker, or I think it's just
the thing that I said,
Band-Aid slap, but
the thing that I said is that because this is something I actually pulled a clip from the last time I was on, because it turns out that you guys bring me on whenever we talk about Harvest. But the last time that we talked about on the podcast, it was Harvest.
Yeah, for good reason.
So the thing about it is that what I said last time was that there are two scales that GGG look at. I'm assuming when it comes to Harvest. One scale is availability, one scale is strength. Like the strength of the actual mechanic and the availability of that strength, right? And they have decided to lower the strength scaling and keep the availability mostly the same. They were very vague with that wording that they said, because the thing about it is that like we had bugs in Harvest when it first originally came out. Everyone remembers that like the first like day it worked properly, and then they changed something, and then suddenly we weren't seeing add and remove or augment or remove. We weren't seeing any of those whatsoever in the actual Harvest. So I'm gonna pull this line up. I have to actually get the line itself, but problem is it's much harder to find the post because they removed it from the front page.
Oh no.
It's not actually. It's not actually on the list. That's another topic, but it's not actually on the list of news posts anymore. You have to go into the Development Manifesto to be able to find it. But the line that says, previously every seed in a patch granted an instance of that seed's craft. Now only some of the seeds do, so you're getting far fewer of the crafts, so we're overwhelming people in their quantity. I think that's a good change. However,
I think that's a weird change.
I think it's good in the sense that it's going to reduce the black hole time void a little bit. But the problem that I have is the next line. Higher tier seeds are closer to the 1-to-1 ratio from before. That line makes me think that the higher tier seeds are going to be rarer. That's what it seems like, but it's very
vague,
open-ended.
but it does what it seems
it's
like.
very
Yeah.
vague.
Yeah.
So they may change the availability scaling a little bit.
How I understood, this is how I understand these lines, is that before, let's say you spawn like 10 fizz crafts, 5 cold crafts, and whatever, like it says on the thing. And now, instead of like reducing these numbers, like that you see initially, you still see the same numbers, so you still see 10 fizz crafts and 5 cold and 1 scarab and whatever. Each of them have like a chance to just not exist, basically, when you open that. So you get 10 fizz crafts, and you open that, and then you get 6.
No, I think it's going to be more like you instead of seeing 10 fizz crafts, you see 4 fizz crafts.
That's not how it's worded. That's the way we think.
Really?
That's what I think would be the sensible change. But they said it's not a 1-to-1 ratio. So if you get 1 augment influence or whatever, you, instead of always getting that once you see it, you have like a 95% chance or 90% chance to actually get it, and a 10% chance that it just poofs. And that's such a weird... I think that's just a feel-bad mechanic.
See, I was looking at it... I understand what you're saying. I was looking at it like the actual physical plot itself. There might have spawned 10 physical seeds, whatever the physical seeds are called, but then, it'll list that you'll get 4 crafts from it, right? But, you're saying...
You're actually agreeing with Yoji there. That's the same thing that he's saying, I'm pretty sure, is that the seeds will show up in the plot, but they may not actually give you anything.
Yeah, they might not be on the list. So you have the same amount of monsters, so your XP, your loot, and stuff doesn't change. That's what they wanted to do,
gotcha.
Right?
So we're agreeing that, like, the text that's above the harvest plot is correct.
I hope that's the case, because if that's not the case, that's a super feel bad mechanic.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Now I fully understand. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
But the problem I have with like this nerf is that let's say you get 10 fizz crafts. Currently, you already have like a very small chance to get like aug or remove or whatever, and then you have a high chance to get like magic item or rare item upgrade, a rare item like chaos or augment or regal craft or whatever. So now it's like, okay, I get 10 fizz crafts, so I have a decent chance to get like maybe something I can use. Now I only get 4. And if then the chance within these rolls is the same, that's actually a pretty huge nerf. On the contrary, though, they buffed the spawn chance. So basically what you have to do, you have to run more maps to get the same amount of harvests, but you get more harvests per map. So it's basically more busy work for the same amount of crafts, which feels weird.
I can agree that there's going to be those moments if they do change it like that, which there's going to be those moments where it's like you run to a plot, right? You see one plot and it's got like 15 things that you want, but the other plot's got like 3 speed crafts on it, right? You're like, oh, maybe I need to take that speed craft, and then you kill the enemies, you pop open the thing, and there's no speed crafts. There's maybe 1 at most, right? There could be 0. If that's the way that it's going to work, where they're not always going to guarantee 1, are we going to be able to get 0 of a craft, or is it just going to be a sliding scale from 1 to whatever the maximum number is? Because if it's 0, that feels like a huge mistake. Because that's just going to piss people off for no good reason.
I mean, if the numbers on the thing that we get are not correct, like on the sign on the text box,
If that's like 3 chances, or like, then terrible.
That would be absolutely bad, and I hope they don't do that. But still, if you like, you go in, you see the plot, and you still see like the huge tier, like it's actually like a fat tier 4 plant in there, whatever. You can see that when you come in, and you're like, but it didn't generate anything. You still have to fight the freaking tier 4 mob for half an hour, but you don't get the craft. Like, what the hell?
But that's perfectly in line with Gambling Gear Games. Come on, dude. That's their vision for it is the RNG. They want it, man. Come on. You telling me that you don't want to feel terrible after it says that here's this thing that you can have, but actually no, sorry. Come on, dude. They love taunting us and putting stuff in our faces. That's what they did with Harvest. Twice.
So this kind of brings us a bit more to how they also, well, I guess let's put it what we can see from this post of Grinding Gear Games' direction for the game as a whole and direction for what they think crafting is. Their crafting philosophy, right? What kind of came across in the post. So as to not, take anything out of context from the actual post itself. Actually, Dux, do you have the post up there?
I do have it up, yes.
Are you able to read verbatim I think there's a couple of lines, right, that have, let's say, offended a large portion of the community.
We're talking about the memes?
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Meme time.
So here we go. Okay, so this is something that this is the conversation that I've moved more towards. I'm done. I think we've talked enough about like harvest crafting in general. I'm not talking about the podcast here, but like in general with like my community and such. I feel we've talked enough ad nauseum about the actual harvest changes themselves. I think we've moved towards like GGG's vision for the game, the way that they communicate these kinds of things, and what they're looking to do and what they like. So first line, using currency items like Exalted Orbs or Chaos Orbs on your gear is a powerful, risky, and exciting way to improve it. That's the first.
Let's just focus on that one first. Can we just do that one first, and then we'll go to the next one?
Sure. Okay, I want to agree with risky.
Risky,
I will agree with risky. Yes, I agree.
Yeah. Powerful?
Powerful
potentially.
Is...
Compared to loot on the ground,
potentially
it's
powerful.
Really powerful.
Yeah, so...
True. We can get into that too. Remind us to get into the loot on the ground thing, because I'd like to talk.
Oh yeah. I'll definitely. I've got some stuff there as well. Yeah. Actually, no. Read the next one anyway. I think the next one in context as well is good before we. Yeah.
The other thing is that exciting, because we talked about powerful and risky. Exciting. Not so much.
I have to disagree with you there, Dux. This is a totally personal thing, but I really enjoy using Chaos and Exalt on items. I legitimately, being a 0.1%er who can afford to do that, right? I am, and I will say that, right? But I legitimately really enjoy that. I think it's fun, and I know that most of the time it's going to brick, but I have quite the gambling tendency in games like this, and so I guess it plays into me as an individual, right?
I do think that right there, it is perfectly fine for you to have your opinion, right? Like anybody that's going out and being like, your opinion sucks, what a loser, all that, like it doesn't do anything constructive for us as a community. Like all of the attacking between the people and stuff, like you can attack the opinions and takes of people, attack the point, attack the thing that they're saying, that's fine.
Yeah.
Don't attack the person. There's no reason. It doesn't actually fix anything. So I think that is what's causing the big divide, is that there are people who are in the super high end, like yourself, who enjoy the idea of it, and there's people who I try to keep my mindset pretty much like a I'm gonna say average mapper. We'll use that term now. I try to keep my mindset more so in line with that kind of person. So I think that is causing the divide. But I know you wanted to talk about the next line. There's a couple lines. Do you want to talk about the really big one? Do you want to talk about the really big one? Because then there's the other one. The really big one.
Just go for it. Yeah.
This sentiment was summed up by a member of our design team who recently said, "We don't want to take away the feeling of closing your eyes and exalting an item, scared to see whether or not you ruined it."
All right.
And this is
I have a lot of Well, you go. I have some things to say here. Yeah.
I'm going to just straight up steal a comment that someone said on Reddit, because this is the most succinct way that I've been able to put it. Said, "That is an excellent way to describe a Vol Orb."
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not an Exalted Orb. I don't feel that way.
Yeah.
I don't feel that way about Exalted Orbs whatsoever. I feel that way about Vol Orbs, though.
I mean, Exalted Orbs rarely ruin an item. It just makes it better or kind of the same with less affixes. It's rarely that you are like, okay, I exalt something. For example, I exalted a shield, try to hit mana, because mana, you actually can't harvest mana, so that's an SSF, that's actually a valid way to do things. And I definitely did not close my eyes, and I was not excited at all, but I was always a bit excited. Like, it's just still like a gambling moment. It's just not interesting. That's my problem with the crafting. It's not interesting. It's not a process. It's just, will I get it? Yes, no. It's a no. It's almost always a no, by the way. So that's almost my issue. And yeah, I don't know. It wasn't ruined. It was just like, I got +2 to melee gems. Cool. I can try to remove that with harvest and then try again.
Yeah, so I think the big thing that we have gained from this, I think the biggest gain that we have gotten from this is very obviously the memes. So I don't know about you guys, but
meme economy is pretty lit.
But meme economy is doing really well right now, regardless of however anything else is going. Because I mean, did you guys see Cute Dog's video? I'm assuming you might have, the video that he put out immediately after those changes.
Yeah.
That was a pretty good video.
It's good.
Yeah, there was, in general, like, so much good memes. Like the subreddit was also memeing the crap out of this.
Very heavily, dude.
But that couldn't have been. That can't be like in GGG's best interest, right? That wasn't. I hope that wasn't their plan. I mean, maybe they were just like. I
mean, that's kind of. I mean, honestly, I would not. I've had this opinion for a long time, and this is getting kind of more meta about GGG, but I feel like I don't know if they need to hire like more PR people? Do they need to hire like some more management people or something like this? Because potentially, if they were going for the meme route, then maybe that was a good way to like offset the anger, because it kind of has. But if they're not going for the meme route and they feel very particularly that this is the thing that they wanted to say, because let's be clear on one thing. This was a post by Chris. I noticed that Chris normally takes the posts that are negative upon himself. I noticed that he does do that every single time. When there's a post that he knows is going to be bad, he never makes Bex do it. He never makes what is her name? Natalia. He never makes Natalia do it. He never makes anyone else do it. If it's a big post that he knows is going to be negative, he takes it upon himself. I wonder heavily if we are going to see a evolution of GGG here because of the response to this post. I wonder, because they've already moved much further away from being as open with the community as they were before. They've moved away from that. Definitely. And I wonder if they're going to move even further away because of the response to this post. I feel kind of like they will, because we haven't gotten any notice, no update. Beck said something in a Reddit thread. That's all the response that we've gotten about this. 5 years ago, GGG would have made 4 posts about how negative the response was to this. Easily. They would have made 4 posts, maybe a video, maybe some Reddit comments, something like that, but they've been silent besides those couple things that Beck said.
I think one of the reasons they have been silent is because they knew this post was going to do that. That's my belief. All right, post is out. Everyone go. No, I think they knew to some extent. I don't know if to the extent of you know, the high end craziness that we've seen of some pretty negative stuff that's come from just, you know, certain individuals that aren't, you know, representative of our community as a whole, right? You know, like that just happens in any gaming community or anything like that, or any big community, right? Aside from that sort of stuff, I think they were pretty certain that there was going to be quite the backlash to this.
Sure.
But I do believe that they weren't expecting things to get memed or taken this far with some of the wording that they used, right? Because I do just want to go back and just quickly talk about the line about the, you know, closing your eyes and slamming an exalt. Because, you know, as I said, and I am an edge case, I know this. I 100% know this. I have closed my eyes and exalt slammed many times in part of it, like many times.
This league even, right?
This league even, and I've loved it every time. And I think most of the time
wrote
it bricks,
the post,
right?
We found it out.
It was actually me, guys. I wrote it. No. So in one sense, I can get where whoever that, you know, design team member is coming from. I can get what they said, but it just was not said in a way, you know, it was a generalized statement. You know, not everyone feels that way. That's a very small subset of people who would ever do that and would ever enjoy doing that, right? So it, like, I get where the words came from, but I hate that they were put in there.
And I think I think that line actually caused a lot of problems for content creators. I particularly think that line was the root of the issue between all of this, like the harvest wars over on Twitter and everything else that's been going on. Is that there has been this big disconnect, right? Because you know that feeling, you like that feeling, you strive for that feeling. The average player has no fucking clue what you're talking about. They're like, what do you mean? I have no idea. So the problem is, and I've been saying this a lot because you guys know me, I think at this point, I say what's on my mind. I don't really censor myself very much. I just kind of talk, and I've made that a point as like the way that I'm going to do things. I'm just going to talk. And the thing that I think a lot of people are doing wrong, and the reason why a lot of these content creators are getting hate, not going to name any names because it's not fair, because there's a lot of people that it's happening to. People are going to name names, but it is what it is. The problem is that when you say something, or for example, if you're like jumping for joy about something that someone else feels very negatively about, they're really in their emotions about it, and you're sitting there like, yes, I love this, it's amazing, it's awesome. Like, you get maybe the, you know, like in saying stuff like that and invalidating the feelings of these other people, a rather large portion, there's way more people who don't know that feeling than there are that know that feeling. So when you start doing these kinds of things and invalidating the feelings and not trying to at least see it from the perspective of these people, you're going to get people who are angry. And then, as you said before, there's this tiny itty bitty subset of people who are angry and willing to take action on that angriness. And those are the people that cause all these problems. And I'm going to say, I really, really am tired of people complaining about angry Reddit threads. I'm just tired of hearing about it. Like, there are people like saying like, oh, there's all of these people in these angry Reddit threads that are like promoting violence, and it's such a small percentage of people. We don't need to give those people a platform. We don't even need to talk about those people. It's not worth the time. It really isn't. They're not worth our time, genuinely. Like, Reddit is angry. Let Reddit be angry. That's literally what Reddit is designed to do. It's literally just farming anger. I mean, you could go into the politics of that, but Reddit is literally for farming anger. I mean, it is what it is.
It's not just the Path of Exile community, guys. It's not. It's the platform. Well, very much the gaming side of things, but mostly platform a whole. But you're very, very correct.
There are very few exceptions of bigger gaming subreddits. They usually tend to go more and more toxic the bigger they get also.
Well, because if you're enjoying the game, are you sitting on Reddit talking about it? No, you're playing the game.
It's another big, a very big thing, but a very short thing to say is like that usually the people in any sort of situation like this, usually the people that are happy stay quiet because, you know, they're happy. They'll just keep playing, right?
I mean, every now and then there will be like a Reddit thread where someone is like, hey, yo, I'm cool with this. Amazing patch. Then it gets like a bunch of 100 upvotes, is up there for like a day or two, and then goes down. But it's nothing compared to the number of negative stuff and criticism you get. Because like every now and then, like the positive people will feel like they have to speak up because there's so much negativity. But that happens like every other week or so. Like one post comes up where something's highlighted. Hey, I like this change. Hey, Maven endgame is awesome. I think we had a few of those.
Yeah.
And I can agree. This patch was one of the best ones they've literally ever put out. It really was. Echoes was amazing, is amazing. And I think that Ritual served its purpose. It's just a cool little addition to maps that give you some cool items, and I think it served its purpose. You know, it's whatever. It didn't detract from what Echoes was. But I think that another problem that people get onto is that, like, in related to that, it's like, I am very open to letting people complain, because I think that letting people complain is much better than like shooting them down and making them angry and pushing them to do more things. Let people complain, guys. Like, legit, if they want to complain, let them complain. Just listen to them. They're not asking you to change your opinion. They just want to be heard, is all that it really is. So I mean, just listen to them, right? I mean, if you don't agree with them, don't agree with them. But
yeah, I think so as well. As long as you stay like civil, don't attack people, as you said. If you just talk,
that was a disclaimer I was going to put there.
Content, and don't go at after the guy saying it, but like after his point. I think there's a lot of good discussion to be had. There's also a lot to be learned about like what Path of Exile crafting maybe, instead of like, now that we know what we don't want, everyone kind of like learned from this, I think, what they don't want. Either if you like Harvest or don't like Harvest, or if you want to slam Exalts or don't want to slam Exalts, or whatever, you want to go back to this fossil meta. No matter what you want, if such a big change happened, it usually teaches you more what you really like or what you really dislike about, like in this case, crafting, obtaining items.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm responding to chat.
Yeah,
because I have chat on my main monitor.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Right below BigDucks.
even though chat, we are doing this live for those watching after. Even though we might not respond too much to you while the actual podcast is going on, you should know that we're listening, we're hearing, we're reading, and we're letting that inform the discussion as well. So it's it's helpful.
So I think you guys feel like we've gotten enough out of those couple topics, and we can move on to probably the next one, which I think is another pretty big point that I think will be interesting, and that is trading harvest crafts.
Yeah. So this is.
I've not interacted with the system at all, so I can't really say so much about it. But from what I've heard, it's basically like a vouch-based system. Where you trade with other people, and you can like list craft on the Discord server that like grabs the things into like a listing, and it's kind of like, it's similar to like the PoE trade website, but on like a discount code based thing where people can actually vouch and disvouch.
So there's problems with it, of course. I had some choice words about it on stream. I'm not going to get into those. That we were literally just talking about this before we swapped over. Well, before we bricked or poofed our headhunter. But the idea is that it's sort of like that. It's not exactly like that. The problem is that it's a big step down, because it is literally just a rotating wall, constantly just going like this, of just people listing crafts that they want to sell or they want to buy. It is just constantly like this, just all the time. It never stops.
So it's more like trade chat.
Yes, it is very much like trade chat. It is it is so annoying to actually use, and I understand that there's not really a much better way for like a third-party content creator to do this, and that's why I was so upset with what GGG said here. I personally feel like this was the biggest thing that upset me about the entire post, was this section here about trade. I don't know how you guys feel about the entire post. This was the thing that ultimately at the end of the day is what upset me the most, because I read the other ones. You want me to read this one?
Okay,
so
the way I have it open as well, but you go ahead.
The way that it worked is that they were talking about perfect items and all this kind of stuff, but the part that got to me is they said, we feel that the current state of Harvest runs against both of these important philosophies. Those philosophies being that like you shouldn't be able to get super powerful items, and that very few players are able to get those things. This is something that Chris has said literally from day one. He likes the idea of Diablo 2, where 5 people in the entire game have Wind Force, right? That's the way that that's his original philosophy for it. However, the problem is that with trade, and I have to find the exact quote because it's kind of hard to find, is that players also expressed frustration that the most effective way to get the best items in Path of Exile was to join a Discord channel and try to trade for those incredibly crucial crafts. I agreed with that frustration. And when I was reading this, I was like, oh, they're acknowledging that there is a problem. I'm like, great, they're acknowledging that there's a problem. Cool. Okay, so acknowledgement of the problem. And then they extrapolated on the problem. The first part of this that concerned us was that Harvest was critical in making the best items, and hence made many other game systems obsolete. Sure, that makes perfect sense. Completely reasonable. The second part, where it was inconvenient to trade them, becomes far less of a problem if we can solve the first issue. And that is the part that kind of was like, really? Because they then said, our problem with all of this can be summarized with the following thought. Why would I use a regular Exalted Divine Annul Orb when I can get one through Harvest that has a deterministic result? And while I understand why they're saying that, I asked chat, I asked my YouTube comment section, albeit they're mostly more average players in those places, how often have you ever used an Exalted Orb on an item? How often do you use null orbs, and how often do you use divines in comparison to trading them for your items? The overwhelming majority of people said that I never use those types of currency, ever, right? And it's just like, why are you going to dangle the fact that you found a problem in front of us and then just be like, yeah, but we're not going to fix it. It's just, here's the problem, but no, we're not.
It's a very, very bad mistake too. Well,
it seems like the fix is nerfing Harvest to the point where, as I said, engaging in the Discord server is not worth the time anymore compared to the power of that crafts. That seems to be what they said, right? They said the problem is that Harvest is the go-to mechanic to make all-powerful items. And then they said the Discord server annoyance is there, they acknowledge it, and then they said if they're going to fix the first thing, which is the power of Harvest, then the second thing is not as much of a problem anymore. So basically, if Harvest is not worth investing extra time in, and so that seems to be their approach after this.
Which upsets me.
Yeah. I guess there's kind of three things with the post that I guess, theoretically could have happened just in terms of we're talking about the TFT trading, right? They could have, addressed the problem and had a potential solution to the problem in the post, which they didn't have a solution. They could have done what they've done, addressed the problem and no solution, or they could have completely ignored the problem and not mentioned it at all. So we could probably agree that that first one that I mentioned was probably, the best thing to do, right? But, addressing it and not...
Fix it, though?
Did they? No. No.
I mean, in the future, like with these changes, you're not going to mass buy crafts anymore, right?
Oh yeah,
I still
you can't
think
add
you
remove,
will.
add remove. That's like the majority of like when you really buy like hundreds of crafts. That's when you add remove, or divine until you're perfect.
So people also forget about all the other crafts that aren't directly targeting mods on the items and certain other modifiers. But
are you mass
still going to
buying
be
them?
sold like crazy. Yeah, things like
Wait,
rerolling
30
prefixes, suffixes.
Oh yeah, those do.
Divines, all this kind of stuff. And there's stuff that's
the divines
just
don't
not
exist
price.
anymore. Divines don't exist.
Oh, the divines are gone. Sorry, yeah. Never mind. Yeah.
Annulls are gone, divines are gone, and augments are non-influenced items. So going through that hoop for non-influenced item is a lot of the time not worth it anymore. So the mass buying is, I mean, there's still the reroll only prefixes and only suffixes. That's still something you're going to mass buy, and that's probably going to explode in price.
Keep in mind as well, though, that none of this really... I still personally think, so hear me out here. I still personally think all of the mass buying is going to happen. And the reason why I feel that is because the way that it's going to work now is going to be much more similar to the way metacrafting was before. You create all of the other mods on the item, get your perfect item, and then you slam some kind of influence mod on it and hope that you get the right one. If you don't, you start from step one again. You create all the other perfect mods, and then you slam on it again. So it's just making it worse, in my opinion, because now people are going to have to make this perfect item, slam it, hope they get the influence mod, and if it's wrong, then they have to start from scratch again. So I think that that's the way that it's going to go instead of the other way, right? It will just discourage people from using it, sure, but those people who are at the top who know how to do this stuff are just going to be even more fervently buying these things so they can craft. It's going to make the situation of double influence items harder, though. That's definitely going to be much more difficult.
Yeah, I think what you said is true. It's I think you said it in the beginning as well, and I agree that the top tier players, like say the tier 0 players, the ones that have basically infinite amounts of currency to toss in each item slot, like they just make an item and they will recraft it until it is the item they want, because they have hundreds of exalted orbs, like actually per item slot. Those will not be affected, but those people can't be the ones that you want to be affected. The ones who are affected, I think, are the like, let's say it's like the tier 0 players. It's like tier 1, tier 2, maybe tier 3 players. Like people who do play quite a lot, but don't have like infinite money, basically. But those people who are like, okay, I can spend like 100x on an item, maybe like 50, but then that's when I'm gone, like done with all the investment I can make. And everyone below that, I don't think is much affected either. Like if you never bought like mass bought items over TFT, maybe if you sell like a craft here and there, that's still gonna happen. If you buy like some crafts here and there, maybe you want like influence slams one thing on your item and hope that it hits, that's still going to be fine. I think everyone who just mass buys, like there's like this, and I think that's why the Reddit might as well be this angry, because I think that's mostly Reddit, right? like tier 2, tier 3, tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 players, basically.
Let me look up something. Because I have there's one thing that I can search for here that I'm wondering about, because I think the people who are going to get affected are the people who don't harvest craft these kinds of items. Like, say someone who makes an explodey chest. Like, what's the cost of an explodey chest right now? Okay, never mind. Let's do one step above that. What's the cost of like a double influenced, I don't know, like explode plus give me another random thing that goes off.
Frenzy charges.
Frenzy charges. Okay, so explode
so cheap.
plus plus frenzy charge,
comparatively
right?
to the past, yeah.
It's chance to gain a frenzy charge on hit, right? Like those two things together.
So basically, like a failed awaken orb chest, right?
Yeah. So explode. I have to find the right one because I never remember. It's explode as physical damage. You kill explode, dealing percentage of their life as physical damage. Those are the two mods. Okay.
Searching items on trade. Ooh.
Yeah, I know, right? I hate that it's so hard to actually get the proper mods on here. But regardless, I remember looking at it a while back, and it was like, what? The cost to make a chest like that is 2 Exalt for the base, like 3 Exalt in Harvest Crafts if you want to do it that way. It's cheaper if you do it with like fossils or something else, so like maybe 1 Exalt for the Harvest Craft. So that's 3 Exalt for a 6 white base, keep in mind. A 6 white, like, linked Astral Plate is like 2 Exalt right now. The Explodey, and to get Explodey on that, it costs like an Exalt, maybe a little bit more. And then you slam it together with an Awakener Orb, which is what, 4 Exalt right now, I think is what Awakener Orbs are at the moment. So the cost of the next base beyond that, which, say, a Frenzy Charge on hit base, is probably an Exalt or 2. So the cost of that item is 8 Exalt for the average player, right? With all of these things moving away, maybe not specifically in this case, but is the cost of that item going to go significantly above 8 Exalt? Because I know plenty of players who can buy an 8 Exalt chess piece. They can afford that. There's a lot of people that can afford an 8 Exalt chess piece. There are far fewer players who can afford like a 20 or 30 Exalt chess piece. The number goes like drastically down, I feel.
Yeah, I think while that is true, I think that is also intended. And I don't really see they said like on the way to PoE2 they want to like slow down the game, nerf player power compared to like content power. So that's in line with that, and a lot of people agree with that statement, that they are okay with that. And now that they're getting nerfed, they're like, but my nerfs, but my power level. And
and that comes back to the dangling.
Yeah,
exactly, and it's what's happened. See, I think. What GG again? Yeah, it's the dangling, right? But what they're trying to really get across here is we don't want everyone to have explode chests, right? We just don't want that. That's kind of what they're saying with this, right? And that is reflected in how difficult how low weighted the mod actually is, right? You know, obviously the rarer it is, the less people that are going to have that, and but
it's supposed to be a chase mod, yeah.
Yeah. The one thing that I actually just want to pull back from here as well, and just kind of remind people in all of this talk of everything that we're doing here about, you know, in quotation marks, you know, the casual player, as we said, we don't really like saying that, you know, the average mapping player or whatever that, you know, people in maps and everything like that, is you can have someone who's at the exact same point in the game, doing the same content or has the same amount of currency, and their goals are vastly different. There are people in the game. One thing that I always have to say to people is please don't generalize groups of people. You know, there's arguments on both sides of, you know, this is catering to only all of the top 0.1% and everyone else is going to have a bad time, right? You know, that's a generalization. That's just not correct. There's going to be people that play, you know, the same amount, and some people are going to really not care about these harvest nerfs, think they might be good for the game, and there's going to be people who are really, really going to miss those harvest crafts and everything like that as well. It's something to keep in mind, that even though you can maybe put players in a box in terms of their progression or the amount they spend on the game, we still have to try not to generalize too much with this. And, you know, it also comes back to those people that aren't speaking up are the people who are probably, you know, fine with the changes, right?
Or they don't know they happen.
Or, yeah, exactly, yeah. Yeah.
Or they don't know if they will be, how much they will be affected. So like kind of like pause champ, basically. I think a lot of people are pretty pause champ, or just kind of like waiting, be like, I wonder what will happen next.
Yeah, and that's what I'm kind of saying as well. Like, you know, let's see for the 3.14 announcement. If it's pretty lackluster, then maybe we can talk about it more as well. Maybe we can talk about this problem more.
I think something we haven't talked a lot about is ideas to actually fix the problem. I think that's the last step, right? Like I think that's the next step. Yeah. Have we gotten it out of our system? Talking enough about the way that GGG responded and the PR fiasco and all of that. So now we talk about ways that we can fix it. Yeah. And I think Yoji has a pretty good one.
Yeah, I think I have a pretty good one. I don't think like Harvest is the problem or the solution to any of this. I think the problem is that let me start by saying I think the item system in PoE is really good. I think the item acquisition in PoE is pretty lackluster these days and has been for a while. I love the affix systems are really, really good. They're cool, interesting affixes like such as various defensive and offensive things that you can put on items. There's like really a lot that you can make out of rare items in this game. But mostly how we currently acquire items is not very fun. Like you get to, even SSF, you get to a point so quickly where you get to a stage where you have items at each slot that you cannot replace by anything that can even drop on the ground.
Yeah.
Which is ridiculous. Or basically cannot drop on the ground. Like if I have an influence mod on my boots, let's say I have a tailwind boots that I'm using in SSF because I'm fairly high end, I can now hide every single boot from my loot filter in SSF aside from high eye level influence boots. And that is true for every slot. And that's solo self, and that's not even talking about trade where you will have double influenced items in most slots, or like crazy good uniques and stuff like that. So you very quickly get to a point where all you can do to ever upgrade an item slot is craft. And then the crafting is pretty meh. That, I think, is a pretty difficult problem. And I think Harvest crafting is more interesting, more engaging, and more fun of a system than most of the other crafting system we had, especially also because it works together with these. So you can essence slam a mod. If you have like a half decent item, you can like fix 2 or 3 things with Harvest and be like, yep, that's an item now. And I also really enjoy Conqueror Exalted Orbs compared to normal Exalted Orbs because they are more targeted. I think they are a pretty cool addition.
I was just going to say, like you mentioned, Harvest crafting being more exciting.
Yep, that's more exciting.
I personally disagree.
I think you're talking about moment-to-moment excitement. I'm talking about having a crafting project excitement, like long-term planning, having
I guess that's
drop. Yeah, because what you mean is like you don't like if you use targeted augments and removes, you don't have this exciting moment of okay, let me hit this. Oh damn it missed. I mean you have that, but you can reroll, so it's not that like hit or miss. But you don't have that. I have a project running. I have this spell or whatever that I want to craft, and I have influenced it. Now I need to augment life twice, and then once you still have the excitement if you finally find that augment life because that thing is freaking rare. Sure. I had like 2 this league, and 1 I lost to a freaking server crash, so I had 1. But once I found that, I was like, oh yeah, nice, augment life. Now I can finally slam life on my belt and get that like what's called also green influence, hunter influence percent life thing on my belt and whatnot. And I think that's still fun and that's still engaging. But I honestly think after like all things considered, I think both systems are hopefully not what we will end up with in the end. I don't think either system is great.
I think it's fair to say that there are different kinds of excitement to the 2 different things, right? Like, you can say that like one, like because I know that Badger still feels that there is excitement to the full crafting process of like metamod creating something, and you're saying there's exciting to the process of like knowing that you have this goal that you can obtain and you know the steps that you need to take, right?
Can I just quickly say I hate metamod crafting with like the like prefixes can't be changed stuff, like locking stuff in place and that sort of thing. It has the same kind of feeling to Harvest for me. I'm just talking
like full-on gamble mode.
I'm very basic gamble crafting here is what I'm saying is exciting for me.
Then that even further pushes my point. So that's
exactly
so,
exactly.
So the idea is that on one hand, Badger is enjoying the gamble excitement, and then on the other hand, someone else is enjoying the journey to get to the point that they're at, right? They're both forms of excitement, just very different.
Yeah. I really have to stress this. I can't stress this enough. Like as much as I keep saying I really enjoy this, that is just entirely my opinion, and that's not how I think the game should be. It's just what I enjoy. All right. Wait, what was that?
Nothing. Don't worry about it.
What are you guys talking about? No, I think actually we can probably have a system that has both, and where both have a valid place, like where there's some deterministic parts that do have a limit, and where there are some targeted, non-targeted slams that like maybe have a bit of a higher power level. Also, something that we could talk about is like I made a very memey but also kind of true comparison to Last Epoch on my video. That's basically I basically meant that maybe there's some things we can learn from Last Epoch here. I don't think that Last Epoch has a perfect crafting system at all, and mainly because it's not tried yet in a trade environment. They don't have trade and multiplayer yet. And once they have that, they'll introduce a bunch of new problems to their game that they will have to fix in the economy and see how the economy plays out. It's basically unforeseeable at that point. Like if you have basically PoE only SSF for like 2 years, and then you slam on trading and see what will happen. No one can expect what will happen. And that's what they are about to do in some of the future patches. So that's kind of like where they're at. But I think there are some things that are pretty cool. They have, for example, skill-specific modifiers that can only drop on items, but that you can just extract from items and craft on new items deterministically. They are fairly rare, though. It's kind of like helmet. You kind of like think about them like helmet chance, right? They're skill-specific modifiers that you can use where you can get effects for your skills. And they have the highest 2 tiers of mods can only drop on items. And they can never be like crafted on. So you kind of like find a base with like, let's say, a boot with like tier 1 life or tier 1, I don't know, throwing attack damage or whatever that you need for your build. And then you will try to deterministically craft the rest onto this. And that's going to be then like a GG item. But there's like a failure chance. It's kind of like Varling, where the item can not brick, as in you can't make it unusable, but it's corrupted, as in you can't craft it anymore, right? Which is, I think, is a cool thing to have, that you can basically not destroy an item, not make it unusable, which is in PoE. Any annulment can destroy your item. Chaos spamming basically always makes an item unusable unless you get lucky. Even Exalt slamming can sometimes make an item either unusable. Let's say you slam on like a suffix that you needed to like metacraft or whatever. And that way you can like upgrade your items as you use them, which is something I enjoyed with Harvest. So maybe there's some I don't know, some compromise here to be found where both worlds exist and work.
I think the one big takeaway from that, at least the point that people have been pushing that I've been liking, the thing like the fix, is that why an item that drops from a map, why can it roll a level 10 mod? Like why does it make sense that an item that can drop from like a level 70 zone is able to roll like tier 18 life or something like that, right? Like why is it able to roll 2 life? Now, I'm not saying why can you not craft those things, right? Like crafting, remove crafting out of your brain when I'm saying this. Why can an item that drops from a map have such low tier modifiers? Why does that make sense? How many times have you picked up an item, identified it, and it's like accuracy, light radius, and like 3 mana? And it's like, feels terrible to identify that item.
I think the answer there is just because of the sheer amount of loot that does drop in the game, and that kind of does just move us towards, you know, what GGG have kind of proposed for the future and that sort of thing. You know, if there's so much dropping, there has to be really bad items and maybe sometimes a good one, right? But if you condense that loot, right, and you're I was saying yesterday in chat, right? Say you're running you're running a map. Let's just say a random map, like a tier 12 map, and you have all of the rares in your loot filter. Every rare shows up, right? In the current game, right? Maybe let's just say randomly, 1 to 2 of those rares might be usable, might be good, might be sellable in the maybe hundreds to thousands of rares that drop, right? Proposed changes or what could be happening in the future, we don't really know, but they, you know, smart loot where the pool of those rare items is now going to be down to, say, 30 to 20 rare items drop in the map, and still 1 to 2 of them are really, really good. Or maybe it's smaller, right? you're going to want to pick up those rare items more and identify them the less there are. And just what it is right now, as you were saying, Ducks, like, why does that exist? Why can you pick up an item and it has such low tier stuff? Is because it's just gotten so out of hand, in my opinion, that like the way to balance, you know, maybe something being really good that you pick up is to just flood just shit items everywhere.
Don't worry, boys. PoE 2 will fix it.
I don't know.
I think it's coming before that, in my honest opinion.
I hope.
I have.
Yeah.
I hope.
PoE 2 will help with like a full base item overhaul, which I'm actually excited about. So that's.
I have faith
loot?
that it's coming in 3.14.
The smart loot might come earlier.
You think we're getting smart loot this patch coming up? You think that's when we're getting smart loot?
I do.
Honestly,
but that's just my opinion. Yeah.
That is a big ask. I'm just gonna say that's a big ask.
100%.
But
yeah,
if I'll go out there, if they give us smart loot in 3.14, I'll forgive them for the Harvest Manifesto 100%. It's all good.
Someone's in chat.
Water under the bridge, dude. It's all good.
Neotronus is like, he's a betting man. Yeah, I am. So yeah, I'll put money on it.
Whatever happened to Chew on Head with the Watchstone? Did that ever happen?
Did it?
I don't know. Think it did. You were the Chew on Head person.
Yeah, but I don't think it did, right? I think we forgot about it.
The reason I didn't like follow up on it is because it was a pretty mean bet, and you like almost won it, right? Like the bet was, Badger said there will be
it didn't happen,
there will be celestial watchstones. And he was like so close. I
was
felt
so
bad
close.
about following up because there were chromium, platinum watchstones, and whatever else, but no celestial watchstones.
No, I that's actually really. Hang on, do I have a shoe here? Can I?
You better
have a shoe here. I gotta go put one on.
You're not wearing shoes. What is this?
But yeah, it was like the bet was specifically. Are they going to be called celestial watchstones? Yeah. And you made it a point. Is it celestial? It has to be celestial. All right, let's see it. Get your screenshots ready. Your clips. There you go. If you have to turn the shoe. You have to turn the shoe forward. There you go. Now it'll work.
Yeah.
All right, now the rest of the podcast like that, right?
All right, brilliant. There we go.
That's perfect.
All right, so for those maybe listening on the podcasting applications, I now have a shoe on my head.
Yep.
It's a good look.
It took us like 10 episodes to actually follow up on that bet because we kind of forgot and Badger moved and a lot of stuff happened, but we delivered in the end.
We've done it. So now we're making another shoe bet? Is that happening?
I'm not sure if that. I can actually see it happen. I think it would make the Nerfs to Harvest would make a lot of sense if that would be followed by this. And I do have quite some faith in GGG that they have as concept for like the rest of 3.14 that makes sense with the nerf.
I guess that's where my kind of faith comes from. It's not just like, well, I really hope that they have this in. I feel like it would be okay, not justified.
It's flopping.
I'm sorry, dude. It's just, I'm imagining the average person coming into the stream right now and having no idea what's there. Like, what the fuck is wrong with this dude? He's got a shoe on his head. Like, what's?
That's just how Badger always looks like.
It's true. This is just who I am, right?
He's just the average player with a shoe on his head.
Okay, this is my question to you two. Would the proposed harvest changes feel more justified in your mind if we had a very strong smart loose system implemented in 3.14?
Justified in the sense that they're trying to go for their vision, or justified like in an overall sense of just how I feel about it? Because the first one is a very different answer to the second one.
That's true. Well, let's start with, justified in their vision, right?
Then yes, it makes sense. Because if their vision is for the game to be mostly about like the luck of the draw, basically, if they're going the Hearthstone route and they want it to just be RNG on RNG on RNG, that makes sense because it still gives you the sense of RNG without all the clutter, without all the system lag, without all of the. When's the last time you guys went into like an 80% delirious fully juiced map and pressed the Alt button on your keyboard? Did your computer crash? I mean, mine almost did. So, I mean, like, the amount of items that drop on the ground is a little insane. So,
yeah.
Yeah, it's completely ridiculous. Yeah, I think the smart loot has to happen just from a performance standpoint at some point as well. I think that alone is enough reason to reduce the loot clutter. And if you reduce the loot, you have to like buff up the loot. Otherwise, you just bring player power from loot to like nothing. We're already at the stage where crafting is vastly better. Even before harvest, crafting is the best way to make all the good items, and looting is just either you get absurdly lucky or you just get okay to good items, never great items.
So this just randomly came into my head, but I think it's a good point. Did you think that if out of Ritual itself, right, all the items that you saw in Ritual, did you feel like any of the items in Ritual, besides like the rare stuff, did you feel like those items were overpowered most of the time when you saw them, or did it just seem like an assortment of okay items, like 99% of the time? Because it kind of felt like we were starting to get like the first ruminations of like what smart loot would feel like. I never felt like I looked at a page of stuff that it was in a Ritual thing. Every once in a while there'd be a good item in there, but most of the time I'm like, oh, these are just okay items. I found a couple cool ones. Like I found a good pair of gloves that had like life and a bunch of resists and open suffix and stuff like that, but they didn't show up all the time, right? I mean, what if literally they just made items like the same exact way that Ritual was? It's just like the Ritual items are the only items that can drop. Whatever they did there, I don't know. Because I never saw horrific items very often in Ritual. Like I never saw like accuracy, like, and that's it. Accuracy, light radius, and that's it. I never really saw those.
I think I'm thinking more about like the harvest. I know it's not harvest. Heist items. That in the because that's confirmed to be like smart loot items. I don't think they ever actually said about Ritual that this confirmed smart loot. It does very heavily,
but it feels like it.
It very much feels like it. Yeah.
Feels like
but
something
yeah,
like that.
I've had some pretty damn decent items in heist lockers where you have like actual like 300 to 400 DPS axes and stuff like that in like just to take
heist
out
lockers feel more like the deterministic. Yeah, you are right. Stronger.
I think that. Well, I think honestly the heist. Lockers might. It's hard.
Yeah, I agree. Yes.
So distracting, man. Freaking shoe flopping about. I think the highest ones might actually be like they roll more often and pick the best one, than compared to Ritual, because they are always like almost always really good. While the ones in Ritual, they're less bad ones. I definitely noticed while leveling there's a lot more fizz weapons, for example, because I think they know that fizz weapon leveling is a bit difficult, so I think they bumped those numbers up a bit. That's what might be happening. Yeah, I mean, how many items are there in the heist window? And I'm mixing up all the leagues now. In the Ritual window. 10,
like 30?
30?
Like
30-ish?
I think it's like 30.
Yeah,
roughly
like this.
I think it'd be closer to like 20. I think 30's pushing it.
And 30 is like including like splinters and stuff, but they rolled items maybe like 10, 15 rolled items if you like re-roll as well.
Yeah.
So if you have every now and then you have like a good one in like 20 items, you probably find way more than 20 items still in a map, even if they cull the loot down. That means you find like a decent item every now and then, like every few maps. That's not too bad, honestly. There's at least you can like upgrade your gear without trading pretty quickly, like just while mapping, without having to worry too much about like third-party stuff. I think the issue still remains that there won't be double influence items dropping. There won't be like even influence drops are super rare unless they give like influence drops. They roll like 500 times and then take the highest tier mods or something like this. You still have to craft all your great gear. And I think that's, I mean, if that's their vision for the game, that crafting is the be-all end-all for great gear, then by all means. But I don't know. I thought I signed up for a loot-based RPG.
Yeah. Not crafting-based, not gambling-based RPG. I mean, we're really moving towards that.
That's what I signed up for.
Gambling gear games is what we're moving towards.
I'm just in here for the gambling base. Yeah.
I'm here. Let's go. Yeah.
Gambling boys.
Jokes aside, you guys are right. You know, it's a loot-based RPG, which is really not feeling like it right now. It's what's classified as a loot-based RPG, but it's not. Yeah.
Economy based is the word.
Yeah, economy based.
Yep. That's a good one. Yeah.
And if you're an SSF, you obviously can get rid of this, but then it's still not loot based after a certain point when it's like 85, 90. Once you got all your these very good items in all the slots and you're aiming for great, it's crafting. It's all that's left.
Yeah.
For the most part, except my freaking belt. It's so bad.
What's going on? What
happened to your belt?
I have a 60 life, 40 mana, and like maybe like 80 total res belts Digivice that I've been using. I'm now pushing level 99 currently, like pretty close, 70%.
Oh.
Still using that. I've used so many fossils, essences, all the things on that freaking thing. It has 35 chaos res, so that's pretty good. Because I made it with an essence that puts 35 chaos res on it. And still using that. Even with Harvest, I wasn't able to make a better one. Because fucking mana doesn't work. Okay, rant over, but yeah. Solution-wise, thanks. Is there anything else you want to add? I think one thing I talked about is where I said you could like spread out all the deterministic crafting options among the game and like spread out the loot. And I think I watched BigDucks react to my videos. So I'm like, BigDucks now have like a bit of a advantage here on Badger because we basically indirectly communicated already secretly. Nice. You said you don't like it taking like the D3 approach. That's what you called it, I think.
Yeah. So
what did you mean by that?
So the idea is when you were, God, I've talked so much about this. Like remembering specific moments is very difficult for me. The D3 approach. What was I saying in response to?
You just I also said talking about like spreading out crafts to like the bosses and to like the missions and like all the sorts. Basically, you take like all the harvest rewards because harvest is bad. You remove the garden and everything, and you take like the targeted exalts and whatnot and put that behind specific map bosses or Aziri or Aziri whatnot.
So the thing that I always argue for is that I like it when GGG adds player agency to the game. I like it when they make it so that you have a choice on what you want to do. And I feel that if they take the most powerful crafting options in the game and they spread them out among everything, it makes it feel like I'm forced to do stuff that I don't like. Because, like, for example, I hate Delve. Delve is one of my least favorite leagues of all time. I hate it. And I know I gave the example, well, why don't they turn Harvest into Delve? It's like, I'm fine with them turning Harvest into Delve. I just won't interact with it because I hate it, right? Like, that's the idea. That's the idea behind it, is that I feel like if they make it and they take all of the stuff from the game and just like spread it out everywhere, I mean, in an economy-based game, if it's not a loot-based ARPG, if we're in the econ ARPG, then it's fine. I'll just buy those, and that's what I do already anyways with Delve stuff. But it's just going to feel like my agency is being taken away, and that's kind of what Diablo 3 is. It's just like, well, you just run, you go do the thing, and then the items drop, and then you don't worry about it, right? And that's all that you ever do. There's no... It's not like... In Diablo 3, you do grifts, right? You just do greater rifts, and you do greater rifts, and you do greater rifts, and you do greater rifts.
But that would exactly be the opposite of what you'd be doing if the craft...
That's why I said it doesn't... It doesn't seem like that's what I said in response to is the problem. That's why I was asking what you were referring to, because I don't feel like I responded to that in that manner, but I'm not going to get real meta here and go back and watch a video of me watching a video of you.
That makes no sense.
I'm not.
Hang on, how about I go and watch the video then?
Maybe like reaction of a reaction of a reaction.
It's like
I'll upload it to my YouTube and then we'll comment on it live here.
But either way, the thing about it is you said that. What was the other point that you made? Because we disagreed on two things, I think.
I don't know what the other one was, but that was the one that I didn't understand what you meant.
All right, here we go. It'll be very easy to find it. What was it? Was it yesterday? The day before?
I really don't know.
When did you release your video?
Monday.
Monday. So Monday. 2 days ago. Yeah, so 2 days ago.
The thing is that with my aim with like spreading out the crafts would be basically, let's say, I think Octavian talked about that on Bay Class as well, where you said like you could make it like thematic. Let's say like the Calm and boss of like tier 16 maps or whatever, he drops like firecrafts, and then I don't know, Aziri drops like some Val specific stuff and stuff like that. That you like kind of like spread it out thematically. So basically, you farm like it would bring back boss farming, which is something I think would be kind of nice. Where you, let's say, if you like kind of like when you want Awakener orbs, you kind of either buy them or kill Cirrus, right? That makes sense. And then you have Aziri orbs and whatnot. I think that would be kind of cool. I don't know if other people would like that, but I would like that.
I would like them to push it more towards the realm of like, I guess like you could farm things specific like that. That would be kind of cool. It'd bring back a little bit of the. It seems like something they would do because it would bring back a little bit of the like Diablo 2 era of things where like people just farmed bosses and such. And I mean that seems to be what Chris loves. So
And I think that's something that a lot of like D2 players, which I'm not one of, always remember fondly when they talk about like how they play D2. They always like they enjoy the boss runs, they enjoy like Mephisto farming, whatever they might be doing. So I think that would be some determinism, but you would basically, as Isla's Jim said in chat, as you would gate it behind grinding a certain specific content, kind of like how it is now a lot in SSF, where if I want a Cinder Swallower and I have to kill Katarina, right? I think that would make a lot of sense. People just buy those stuff. I mean, that's like a completely different point if you want to make them tradable or not, right?
Yeah.
Don't mind me, I found the video.
They always are on the side of tradable, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess
they've always been on the side of saying they don't want to balance their game off of SSF. So I would say that they always go for
actually. If anyone can point me towards them ever saying that please do. I've not yet found it. I've been looking for this for years. People always quote
people
this.
People do say it, but I've never seen it either. Yeah.
I've said that many times before. If anyone has that quote, and either a manifesto, which I read all of them again, by the way, or like a podcast, which I watched a lot of as well, I've not found the quote. They always say, the people always keep repeating and repeating this. This might be the freaking, what's called the Mandela effect at work here. They always say they don't want to balance around SSF.
Bears.
I've not seen that.
Yeah. One thing that we can know for certain is there's always going to be a push and pull of how much determinism and how much RNG is in this game. In my opinion, like right now we're seeing a little bit of a pull away from some deterministic crafting and all that kind of stuff as well, and I'm sure that's going to come back in some other way. Harvest was first and foremost an experiment, and we knew that from the very beginning, right? An experiment for the future, for what GGG wants to do to improve deterministic crafting and, add it to the game in a fun way, in a way that does keep that player agency, right? So, we're seeing a pullback from it now, and that doesn't mean that we're going to see more additions in the future. It just means that right now there's a bit of a pullback, but it's a bit of a feels bad pullback. For a lot of people.
Yeah, for a lot of people, definitely.
Yeah.
It does feel quite bad. I will agree. For a lot of people, it is a pullback, but I mean, we will have to see, as we've said many times. We're gonna have to see what 3.14 has in store. The thing about it is I haven't really censored myself when talking about all of these changes because we don't have any information about 3.14, right? Yeah. So it's like I've just been talking about what we know, but it feels like a very weird time to do this.
Yeah.
The only reasonable thing that I can think of is that this is the most down time of the entirety of the league cycle, and that's why they put it out when they did it. So I found one point that we disagreed on, Yoji, and that was that the working class Exile wouldn't feel much of the change of it, and then I said, well, yeah, they will feel the change because of items, because of the price of the items. I'm still looking for the other one, so don't mind me for another 30 seconds.
Yeah, but that's the one we already talked about.
I found it. I
nice.
Literally just found it.
That comment gets into something that, I'm not saying I agree with this. This is kind of like playing devil's advocate, but does GGG want the working class Exile to have these items that they would have had in this league, right? They're pulling back from it, and that's kind of feels bad, but do they want that? If you have less time to play, maybe they don't want you to have those items that people have more time to play the items that they actually get, right? Which is kind of sucky, but yeah.
I mean, Path of Exile has always been a game that it was about, was catering towards the more hardcore, more invested, more no-life people, right? That was it was the ARPG in contrast to what else was on the market that was catered towards these people, so it kind of makes sense for there to be an incentive to invest more time. I think that's always been the case. I think it comes down to what you want the bottom line to be. Let's say I play an hour a day. Where does GGG want me to be with an hour per day with decent game knowledge? Of course, you can play an hour a day and get a crap load of stuff done. Zizaran, for example, would get way more done than me in an hour per day, and probably 10, 20 times more than someone who just joined the game can get done in an hour per day. So it's not only about playtime. I think playtime is actually a bit overrated, but that's like a completely different topic.
True. Yeah.
But yeah, I think it depends on where they want your working class, average, whatever you want to call this, average dude, random Joe to be.
Yeah.
So I found it. So the comment was basically that you were saying moving away from like an economy-based / like trading-based RPG back towards more of a like boss farming / like targetable loot kind of thing. Like you go here and you get this thing, you do this thing. And the comment that I said, I did say this was similar to the Diablo 3 progression, but what I meant was that I felt that change is a regression instead of a progression. I feel like I felt like we're going back in time rather than trying to find something that's better, if that makes sense. And I wanted to find a way. Like I would much prefer them to make more mistakes and figure out things another way and find a better way to do it instead of just going back to the tried and true. Because I mean, if we're going to go back to the tried and true, that's existed forever. I'd like something different. So we didn't really disagree there. It was more so of just, I didn't like the idea of regression. I liked the idea of progression instead. That's all that it was. The Diablo 3 statement was kind of not correct anyway. So yeah, I basically just
regression just sucks in general. Like,
so you basically don't want to go back to the D2 boss farming because we already had that, and you want like a new system. Or like a new type of interaction.
I would like us to find something new to do, right? Because when I was saying before, talking about like the boss farming and all of that, I said that was a very Diablo 2 kind of thing, and Chris loves Diablo 2 kind of thing, so we'd probably get something like that. I don't really like that path for PoE. I like the fact that PoE is something different than the normal mold of things that are out there, right? But
there isn't that much out there though. Like,
yeah,
I agree. I heavily agree. And people always compare it to Diablo 3, and I think it's such an unfair comparison. Yeah. I think comparing Path of Exile to Diablo 3 is super unfair to both parties. They're both 10-year-old games, and Diablo 3 got one update in 10 years, and PoE is updated every 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
I feel it's a super, super unfair comparison. Like, but Diablo 3 has this, and it's like, well, you're insulting PoE and comparing it to a 10-year-old game with one update.
Yeah.
I mean, there's still things that you can learn from like any game, even from bad games.
I agree.
And I think there's a lot PoE still to this day and age could learn and improve on that D3 has done differently and better. But there's also a lot of things that we learned that from D3 that don't work. And maybe also some scares that have prevented stuff from happening in PoE because D3 has failed on them.
Mm-hmm.
It's like
there was an argument that someone brought up that they said it was something on Twitter, so I prepare, but they said something along the lines of that there's like so many cases of where whenever you add or make things easier for the average player that the game immediately dies, like and there's like a history of that. Do you guys feel that way? I don't really feel that way. I feel like typically games that go more and more and more casual get more popular is typically how it goes. Like they widen up to a larger base most of the time.
Yeah, but they die for the people that made the game big, basically.
Yeah.
That's what happens.
Yeah. The original community leaves. I think that might have been whether that was their actual thoughts or anything like that. I think that's more the truth. The original community of the game dies. It's because
I think that and I think that is true. I just wonder how much of PoE do you genuinely think is people caring about the community? Because I can see it in like an actual real multiplayer game. I can see it in a game where you like interact with other players pretty consistently and you can like play with them. But I don't know. PoE very much feels like a one-player game to me that sometimes you talk with other people in a message, right? Like sometimes you're like, hey, here's my item. Let me have your item. It feels very, very one-player to me. Like if I very rarely have those situations where I'm talking with somebody and I have like a good chat interaction where like I'm like, hey, what's up? Or they say something back to me or they laugh or they're like something like that. It happens so rarely. It just feels like I'm just like talking to a bot. So why can't I just like put it in a window and I just grab their item and I never have to interact with them anyways?
I think I pretty heavily disagree, but I think that would like derail the conversation in a completely different direction. I think the community is one of the main reasons I'm still with PoE to this day, and I'm making content, obviously.
Yeah.
But then making content is also a very different situation than just playing the game.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting towards. Like for us, of course, community is very important, but like for the average player, does the average player care that much? I don't know.
there are a lot of people in guilds, and there are a lot of active guilds actually. So that does definitely happen. Also Discord servers and whatnot. So I think the community actually matters a lot. And I think without the early communities that we had, I don't think PoE would even exist today. I think PoE would have died long ago without communities, streamers, and because the game got big through like the whole sense of community back in the day. Like when you have a game that you really love playing, but you know that would fail, or it still has a chance to like really fail and really die, like if you discover it early, you are a lot more invested, and people kind of like stick together trying to get the game like to get to like the game to grow basically, and so that the game that they love that they don't know they will have it in 2 years will stay. That's kind of like what the feeling was back in the day in PoE. I think for a lot of people, it's like, hey, this might actually be a game that I can play for a long time. That's going to be good. That delivers on something that no other game has for me yet. And yeah, that's, as I said, that's just derails in a completely different direction, way away from Harvest and whatever else.
What I'd like to say, well, I guess to kind of, close things up and that sort of thing is, well, what if any positives are things, kind of meta positives that could come out of this, right? More competition from other companies going like, or even people who, haven't created a game yet or anything like that. I can be for certain that as Path of Exile gets bigger, there will be, more games that come out that try to solve problems that they feel that they've got with Path of Exile. Games that, are still in open beta right now, cough cough, Last Epoch, I think could do a pretty good job of kind of, whatever competing looks like with Path of Exile, right? There's going to be more out there, and if Path of Exile goes in a certain way that you as an individual don't enjoy, then, shop around. But who am I to say anything? I'm just a guy with a shoe on his head. So
as much as our corporate 3xG overlords don't want to hear it, I would love for some more competition in the ARPG space. I would love it.
No, I think they've expressed in the past they want it too. Like they do want. They've been, again, I can't actually grab a source right here for you, but I'm sure that I've heard from Chris or some other people that like they're not averse to competition whatsoever. Like that helps them.
I mean, that makes sense because they're currently the biggest in the market, and usually the market becoming bigger is good for the people who are the biggest in the market.
Exactly.
In any sense, unless they kind of like drop the ball, but they're very far from it. Path of Exile is a little bit in a World of Warcraft situation where it's, for anyone coming in new, it's really hard to compete with just 10 years of updates, basically. And
I think that the thing that I'm interested in is because I've said this to my chat a couple of times, but I don't think Path of Exile, although it is like in the World of Warcraft situation, I don't think that like the brain worms are there yet. I don't feel like normal people know what Path of Exile is, if that makes sense. Like I feel like we're slowly getting there.
Yeah.
But the thing I always say to chat is I'm like, if you went to your mom or your dad or your grandmother and you're like, hey, do you know that game Diablo? Do you think that there's a chance that they would know what that game is?
Nope.
I think that there is a higher chance that they would know what the game Diablo is than whether they would know what the game Path of Exile is. Because actually by name. And the reason why I feel like that's important is because when Diablo 4 comes out, regardless of if it is good or bad, it is going to pull a lot of people away for at least a little bit. If it's bad, they'll come right back. But if it's good, it is going to pull people away just because of the name. Even nothing else, it will pull those people away. I'm going to play it. I don't know about you guys. I'm going to stream it. I'm going to make content for it, regardless of what that content is, whether it's bashing on the game or whether it's good. I mean, I'm going to play it. There's no reason not to, I feel.
I don't know yet. Depends on... like, it's really hard to tell because it's so far away. Like, if it drops very close to PoE 2, I'd probably play PoE 2 or Diablo 4. If it doesn't come out at the same time or close to each other, then I would assume...
strange,
I would assume that D4 comes out a bit later. Kind of like my
I think so as well.
Yeah, I reckon.
I think there's no... I'm probably going to check it out. I think don't have any hopes up at the moment about the game at all. I don't think... like, last time Blizzard put something out that I wanted to play is, I don't know, have they ever?
Well, coming from somebody who still actively plays World of Warcraft, at least occasionally, the thing that I'm kind of excited to see from Diablo 4 is going to be whether or not a MMO style ARPG can have any good merits to it. Like the idea that there's going to be these giant like bosses that require multiple people working together to be able to kill, right?
Yeah.
That aspect of it, I think, is going to be a pretty interesting test.
I've not seen a game that does it in a way that I like, by the way.
Yeah, there's a lot that have done it very, very poorly. Yeah. So I'm curious to see if there's going to be a good way to go about it. Because like Chris said on stage, I think this is what you're referring to, Badger. Chris said on stage at ExileCon that he said that he feels that Diablo 4 has a small chance to be that 100% perfect game. It's a super small chance. I don't think Blizzard can make the perfect game anymore. They're way too far like over the hill at this point to make that perfect game. He said there is like a small itty bitty chance that Blizzard can make Diablo 4 that 100% perfect game, the perfect like little blend of all these different pieces. But he feels that like he's like 90% sure that PoE is going to be a game that is not 100% correct, but it's like 90% of the way there. Yeah. So he says unless Diablo 4 hits that like perfect on the money 100% correct, he doesn't think that it's going to beat them. So I mean, he's saying that as the owner of a part owner of the company that he's talking about, but still.
Yeah, so there's bias there, and he's going to say that.
I mean, he will have confidence in his product, obviously. Sure. Otherwise, and with good reason. Like PoE has been delivering patches and stuff for a while now.
Mirror tier game, true.
Mirror tier game, yeah. Blizzard are basically closing their eyes and Exalt slamming the game now, hoping to hit that tier 0 spot. That's what they're doing.
Do you think that they'll do some kind of weird timing? Because Blake was saying in chat, D4 will be announced, then GGG will announce a PoE 2 release 1 month after, and then at the last minute, D4 will delay a month, and we'll have Cyberpunk all over again. Do you guys think they actually delayed for Cyberpunk, or it was a convenient excuse?
I don't know.
I think they delayed. I really think they did.
I think it's a combination. I think they were like, oof, Cyberpunk, scared, and then they were like, we kind of wanted to change our schedule behind Christmas anyways, so I think it made the decision easier.
Yeah, put it this way, I think GGG tunes into content creators more than we realize as well. Like even just like randomly on Twitch and that sort of thing to kind of gain info or insight on what things were being said around times and all this kind of stuff, right? Like I think more than we realize that happens. And I think around the time of announcements of Cyberpunk and everything like that, like there are a ton of Path of Exile streamers who are talking about like, yeah, I really want to check that out on release. Like I'm probably going to play it for a couple of days if it, even if it clashes, I might even play it. And there were a lot of people saying that, and maybe they were like, "Oh shit!" Anyway, that's getting into some more other stuff there, but yeah.
I think we should wrap it up. Like any closing thoughts?
Yes.
How's the mood after like almost 1 week of Harvest Wars? Probably just like very.
I'm just waiting. Is my mood? I'm just waiting.
I'm pretty spent. See what's happened. I've been in the trenches. Yes. I've been in the trenches for the last week straight, pretty much like. Between chat and all kinds of stuff that's been going on over on Twitter, I've been in the trenches. I'm pretty spent. I think we have gotten to the point where it's like, I think we've done all of the arguing and all of the sensible stuff that we can learn from the information that we have has been done, and now we just gotta wait.
We just gotta wait. So, yeah.
You guys are waiting. Okay, that's good. Yeah. I still feel largely unaffected. I still hope there's something else coming our way.
SSF boys.
Even if I was playing trade, I don't think that my experience would change much. I might actually play trade next league.
I might play SSF next league, so maybe we'll do a switch, Yoji. Yeah, I think so. Maybe we do that. That'd be interesting. Yeah.
I don't know, mate. I think you might have missed the league to play SSF, dude. I think this was the SSF league. I mean, look at how far look at how far that Zizaran made it. Like everyone was saying, like everyone was talking about like Zizaran literally made like an almost mirror tier int stack wander in SSF, dude. Like, come on, like if you want to push SSF to like the limits of what you can do in SSF, I think this was the league to do it.
But that's not what SSF is about, right? SSF is about not having to push to the limit and still get along. Like actually slowing down progression is the idea of SSF. Right?
Yeah.
Is it? Though?
I've spent way too many leagues. Well, not way too many. I've spent enough leagues to push to mirror tier. I'm kind of done with that. I want to
look
just
at
slow
SSF
down.
as just like a meme that people play as a harder difficulty, and I will stick to that point until I'm dead. I think SSF is trash. I know you guys hate. I know you guys probably don't agree with me. I think
and with that we end the podcast.
I think SSF is a pile of trash.
All right. Cancel the
All right, we're never having Big Ducks again.
I think this should be. I think there should be like a different discussion. SSF versus Trade Boys. I think we can have another.
I think that would be a good one.
In the future. Yeah. But I obviously do not agree. I don't think that has to be said. I think SSF is actually the way better balanced way to play the game, and the progression makes a ton more sense.
Oof. No YouTube upload now. Last Big Ducks invite. True.
You've ruined it now, Ducks.
Yep.
No, we will end the podcast there, though. Yoji, are you going to have to duck off? Because we've gone over a bit.
We have like 10 minutes more for like
10 minutes? We can have a couple of questions, chat. If you want to ask some questions after the podcast, we're going to do that. But we're going to officially end the podcast now. We'll be gone for like a minute or so, and then we'll come back. But thank you so much for coming, Big Ducks. This was a good discussion.
I think so as well.
And all I can really say to everyone listening or anything like that is just keep it civil. And, it's totally fine to argue about all this kind of stuff and continue it, but keep it civil. Just try to really keep everyone in mind with what you're saying. So, yeah, but that's all I'll say. Is there anything else to say? Ducks, what are you doing from this point on until 3.14? Are you going to play different games?
So as per, I actually continue to stream Pee-wee all the way through, and I have for quite a few leagues. I know that's like not the norm, but I, as usual, will be doing my league start testing. Actually, is going to begin in about a week. Is when we're going to be starting our like league start testing and begin our work on planning. And all I can say is that Yoji's seen the build that is going to be rather spicy for league starting, and we will see how that goes. Because I think it might be legitimately one of the most powerful. If it doesn't get any nerfs, it might be one of the most ridiculously overpowered league start builds I've ever seen. We'll see.
Well, that's a bit of a teaser. Tune in 1 week's time to twitch.tv/BigDucks.
Saying it for me.
Yeah. There you go. That's the kind of treatment you get on this podcast, even after trashing on SSF.
Yeah,
true,
but not from me, just from Badger.
Yeah,
just friendship between Yoji and Big Ducks completely canceled.
Yeah, it's done. We're done here.
It's
nothing
done.
To do anymore.
Yoji, what do you got on your plate? What's happening with you?
I'll be actually next week. I got no kids, no wife, nothing at home. I'll just be a gamer gaming. I'm gonna stream quite a bit. I'm gonna be pushing at least level 99 on the Necro, which is one level higher than I've ever pushed before, ever. No Yoji has ever gone beyond level 98 until now. And after that, I've not decided. I'll probably check like how slow the XP bar to level 100 fills up. If it doesn't feel super or mega slow, I still got like 25 days or something. And if it does feel super or mega slow, then 99 it is. And we're gonna I have a custom crit character that I played a bit, Inquisitor. That's might play some Loop Hero or Last Epoch or new builds. League start testing for next league. I want to play like a strike skill, something like this.
Nice. Yeah. I started playing Last Epoch a couple of days ago again, and I think we're just going to keep playing that for a bit. Might jump back to PoE to do a couple of last hurrahs with stupid harvest crafting to kind of burn my currency. But then, yeah, maybe some league start testing. But I got a bunch of stuff I want to do as well. I've got, I think Magic Legends is coming up soon, which is like an ARPG set in the Magic the Gathering world. We're going to check that out, see how it is. And just, keep playing some other stuff. Monster Hunter Rise is another one. I really enjoyed Monster Hunter, so that's coming out on the 26th. Monster Hunter Rise QT, yeah, exactly.
It's pretty good.
But yeah. Anyway, we're going to end the podcast now after we said we were going to, and then we did a nice round there. But thank you so much for coming, everyone. As always, if you came halfway through or anything like that, check the YouTube video on Yoji's channel if you want to see the full episode, and then on all podcasting applications after the fact. Thank you so much for coming, everyone, and as always, stay sane.
Exiles.